everybody. This video is in response to a request from one of my followers, JAXRL. I'll put a link down below this particular video. Her videos are always very interesting, but she says we are kindred spirits when it comes to gadgets. She's a Gageteer as well, so she requested a video on some of my favorite gadgets, kitchen gadgets, etc. I've started making it, and then I realized this thing will go on for hours, so I think what I will do is maybe a series of 2 or 3 short videos with 2 or 3 gadgets in each one. This first video has 3 of my favorite gadgets in it, so if you have favorite gadgets that you have too, let me know about them. Well, the first gadget in my Gageteer's confessions here is an Italian food mill. In Italian it's called a passatutto, which simply means, literally translated, as you can pass everything through it. The French also use one that's quite similar called a moulin cuisinier, a kitchen mill. This particular one comes with 3 different screens in the bottom. This is the largest one, that's the smallest one, and I have the medium-sized one already in there. There's a spatula affair that goes around on this when you crank this wheel that forces whatever you're making into a puree down through the grill. In France and in most of Italy, when they serve a soup, especially a vegetable soup or whatever, it's a puree. There's never any chunks of soup in it, so most soups are put through this and then reheated, of course, and then served as a puree. This is a day or 2 before Thanksgiving, and I'm going to my brother's for dinner, and I'm bringing the pumpkin pie. So what I'm doing now is pureeing the pumpkin to make the pumpkin pie. I guess this will give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, the gizmo that's inside here. And I've done most of a bowl of this stuff. That's the internal workings there, if you can see what it is. And it makes a very good puree. Although only about halfway through the pumpkin. I didn't weigh the pumpkin, but I certainly got enough to do more than one pie, I guess. But anyway, I'll get you down there so you can look at that. The end product is a very nicely pureed pumpkin. If you've ever seen a pumpkin cooked before something like this is done to it, it has sort of a stringy texture, but after it's passed through the mill, it's a very nice, soft pumpkin. So hopefully that'll make a decent pumpkin pie, and that's gadget number 1. Good morning. Gadget number 2 is my espresso coffee maker. Mine's Italian. You see them used in a lot of different European countries for home coffee making. Don't have the fancy espresso machines in very many homes. And I know of a few people over here that use them. If you check out some of Gadetier's videos, you'll see his in the background, and I have a few other friends that have them as well. But this particular one came from Italy. A few years ago I worked on a couple of small holdings, small farms in Italy, and both families that I stayed with used these, and I bought this particular one in Arezzo in Tuscany. And I'll give you an idea of how that works if you haven't seen them before. Comes apart into 3 pieces. This is the basket where you put your espresso. This is the container where you put your water. And this thing here is where the coffee ends up. It's forced up through, the water is forced up through the basket of espresso. And it goes through a screen on the bottom here. And collects up in here where it can't get back down. Anyway, I will give you a little idea of how I make my morning latte, or in France it would be called a café crème, and in Spain, where I've had a lot of these, it's called a café con leche. There's a little safety valve, if you can see it or not, on the side of this container. It will blow out if something goes wrong, and so the pressure won't get so high. But you fill it with water to the bottom of there, put the basket in, and for my taste anyway, I use 2 tablespoons or 2 heaping tablespoons of espresso coffee. This little Melita scoop is a tablespoon, but I fill it up over the top. Keep your coffee at room temperature in an airtight container. Mix it back together. I'll show it on the burner when it starts to make the noise of the water coming up through making the coffee. And for my large latte mug here, this makes just enough coffee. In Italy they say that's 4 cups of coffee, those little shots that they drink. I tried to correct them and tell them that that's not a coffee, you need a large mug of coffee, but that's what they're used to, is a small thing of coffee. And I microwave for 1 minute a half cup of, I use skim milk. Put the 2 together and you end up with a latte. But anyway, I will put it on the stove now and show you how it works. You can hear that the coffee is starting to come up through. You go by the sound. When it finishes coming up through, of course it's forcing out the air that remains down the lower chamber. It makes a louder sound, and you know your coffee is ready. I can still hear it picking it up on this microphone or not. It only takes about a minute for it to all come up through. That's the sound that lets you know your coffee is ready. Final step, combining your hot espresso and your hot milk. That's how my day begins every day. Don't know how I could start a day without it. Kitchen gadget number 3 is whatever you want to call this. Chinese sieve, Chinese ladle, I'm really not sure. It is definitely Asian in origin. You see it being used in Chinese restaurants and that sort of thing. I'm not sure the metal that it's woven from is brass or not, but I've had it for many years and it doesn't discolor. And the bamboo handle, which has got a little too close to the fire on a few occasions, is burnt. I use it for many things. If you saw me dehydrating tomatoes when I was taking the tomatoes out of the hot water bath to take the skins off, I used it. But this is one of the more common things that I use it for, and I'll show you in just a few minutes. I've got pasta, pani rigate, cooking in water with the salt, and the sauce is in this skillet. And it takes about 12 minutes to cook pani rigate, so I time it for 10 minutes, and after it's cooked for 10 minutes I do the last 2 minutes in the sauce, and that infuses the sauce into the pasta. But the great thing is you don't have to use a colander to dump out all the water, whatever, to get your pasta. I scoop it out with this and bring it over, and that way I still have the hot pasta water to ladle into the sauce as needed, because the pasta finishing to cook in the sauce will absorb a lot of the moisture that's in the sauce, and the already boiling water won't cool the sauce down. So that's all the reasons for it. But this is a wonderful little kitchen implement. I think you can probably find it at any shop that sells Oriental or Asian kitchen equipment. And that's the timer. Pasta's had its first 10 minutes. You see how easy it is to remove it and transfer it with this sieve or ladle or whatever you want to call it. I guess it can be used when you're deep frying things too. I don't do much deep frying, so but I have seen cooking programs where the chef has used this to get a fish out of the hot oil or whatever. And there's a little look at the finished product. Almost ready to serve. I added 1 ladle of the pasta water, and as soon as that is mostly absorbed, it will be ready for the table. Just a little look at the finished product. It's got some of my hot capsicum black pearl chilies in it, so I may not survive this. Those things are very hot.